Okay, we're online. So, welcome, Mickey, Ian. This
Hey
is
guys.
the behind the scenes of ESG in space. To talk a little bit about how we came together, why we're doing this, and what our objectives are of this podcast. Ian, it's the first time you're appearing with us, Ian Christensen from the Secure World Foundation and one of our sponsors. Ian, why is Secure World Foundation? Why are you interested in this topic on ESG in space or sustainability in space? We'll come to the term in a moment. But why were you interested in sponsoring us to host this podcast?
Yeah. Hi guys. I'm definitely glad to be here and looking forward to seeing these episodes out in the world and getting the discussion going. So, Secure World Foundation broadly, we are a nonprofit organization. We focus on cooperative dialogues around space sustainability. Space sustainability is essentially how do we continue to operate in and benefit from the space environment and the applications and services that we use that environment for. So stability and benefit, and that's where kind of our interest in ESG or responsible or sustainable space economy practices comes from. So the space economy, we see that developing, we see new opportunity, new services emerging from it. As that economy develops, it really provides benefit to society, benefit to those who depend upon space services, and what we want to see that benefit expand. And so we want to see what we can do to encourage and discuss and identify responsible action in the space economy, because uh, actions of one affect others that use space, and stability can help us grow opportunity for all. So that's kind of where the origins of this comes from.
Yeah, yeah. I heard a lot about responsibility and stability, and I think that's something that came from one of the panels, Mickey, that you organized. Must be what, almost 3 years ago now, that brought the three of us together.
Yeah, that's right. So we came together, three of us, because of the event called Wharton Aerospace Ventures Conference in fall of 2022. And the title of the panel was Building a Vibrant Space Economy. So when I was thinking about how to put that conversation together, I reached out to Ian, of course, and then Scott Caudell from he was previously with MITRE, and then Nishan too, right? The reason is because I think back when I was working for International Space Station National Lab and looking at some, I guess, leading edge of space economy, especially the commercial economy and new science discoveries and technology development that could be a driving force of future space economy, and seeing that it's going to be very international and not just traditional players like US, not just US, but like governments or big corporations, but maybe private sector that we never associated space with, but they will, like in the future, I don't know how long, 10, 15 years from now, but like there will be a day that many more players will come online, private, commercial, but also international players. And that would make a vibrant space economy. And then when the part of the reason why I especially invited Nishan is that he has a background in ocean. And so I thought there are many lessons that we can learn from other sectors and how the, say, ocean and other sectors had put together norms and standards and regulations so that like sea could be used by many international and many players in a sustainable manner and make a robust economy. So I thought that perspective is important. Yeah.
Yeah, so that's interesting because as you touched on that, Mickey, I think there's a couple of perspectives. You've got the international side that space can be used by so many different communities. There's also a diversity of players. The fact that we want institutional investors. If you want to have a mature economy, just like we saw in the maritime sector, you'll eventually get a lot of commercial players coming in, moving from a predominantly government-led sector industry, which space was until the 2004, to a private sector. We're going to see that evolution, but also from a funding perspective. Funding at the moment is from venture capitalists or governments or big philanthropists. And so if you want to see these institutional financiers, insurance, other actors come in, we'd have to think about what the levers and tools are to govern a private space economy in the same way that different levers and tools are used in sustainability or the oceans or other domains. I mean, Ian, if you could talk a little bit, Will, that diversity that Mickey mentioned, but what is there are lots of forums that talk about or set precedents, for example, of frameworks for Artemis Accords, but what is different about this podcast? What do you hope is kind of uniquely achievable, or the goals of this podcast?
Yeah, so I think one of the things that excites me about the episodes that we've got coming up, and the guests we have, is that we've really kind of hit that diversity of participants in the space economy. So we're looking at it from operators and companies to entities that are involved in finance to folks that are involved in developing principles or guidelines that might support activity. And so I think what we're really able to do in this series is kind of just explore that range of viewpoints and participants, and discuss things like coordination, discuss things like responsibility, discuss things like sustainability, and just kind of what those viewpoints are on those themes and on those topics, and what they might fit together in terms of what future participation and expansion of opportunity looks like.
Okay. And Mickey, I mean, what are some of your goals, aspirations from this pod? What do you hope that listeners will take away from this podcast?
Yeah, I think, like Ian said, that especially, I think the reason why three of us been thinking about this topic for a while is that we need a platform and safe place for diverse people to share their perspective, right? But I think if collectively, then we can start to form what's important for all, and started to form consensus around it. And I think I like learning and hearing different perspectives. Definitely intellectually stimulating to me. Yeah, but I feel that is important to have the place to share opinion, because at the end of the day, I think we would all like to have the vibrant space economy and the benefit to Earth, and also access to the frontier space innovative platform should be available to all people, I think. Yeah.
Great. And one final question, as you talk about this diversity of viewpoints, there's clearly not a consensus. I think one of the big elephants in the room is probably the title. What we call this. When we first conceived and developed this title, we thought of the concept of ESG in space, and I think it's worth mentioning that 3 years ago, ESG was a powerful tool. It shifted trillions of dollars of business behavior. We see from Davos, we see from the oceans domain, the sustainability nonprofit domain, and how do we think of the UN Sustainable Development Goals? How do companies sign up to the UN Global Compact or other big bodies with the World Bank and IMF and the UN and national governments and corporates really aligning their philanthropy around things like the Sustainable Development Goals or ESG indicators, and there was a 20% year-on-year rise on these sorts of indicators. We had a lot of discussion about what are the ESG indicators for space, right? And could that show well-run and well-operated companies? And clearly in the last 6 months, with some big political changes, that there is a tide that's turning, and we're, I guess, caught up a little bit in that whirlpool of the phrase ESG. Maybe, Ian, you can spend maybe a minute just kind of sharing your perspective. How wedded are we to this phrase ESG in space, or is there something kind of deeper underneath the labels that we're still trying to get at?
Yeah, so for me, I'm definitely interested in what's underlying, and whether those motivations and principles that were maybe formerly discussed as ESG, whether those factors continue to be relevant and how they continue to be relevant. And so it may be that as part of this kind of political change and the the reevaluation of that term, we begin to look at what aspects of it are, I'll use the word sustained, a different context of sustainable, but what aspects of ESG performance, ESG indicators persist and are more operationally relevant in a less I want to say less visible, but in a more day-to-day context, right? So let's look at what really persists and what really is operationally relevant, and kind of worry less about what the framing is.
Excellent. So yeah, let's politicize. Well, I think with that, that's probably the introduction that we need. I think we hope our listeners will enjoy the journey that we're going to go on, the guests that we have. We look forward to some really exciting and stimulating discussions. Mickey, any final thoughts before we launch the podcast?
Well, dive in and let the discussion and conversation going, I would say.
Excellent. And thank you, Secure World Foundation, for your support in hosting this podcast.
And thank you both for your organization and hosting.
Thank